Hello, human peoples. You're listening to the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. To support us and gain access to great exclusive podcasts like Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and our latest show, Spiel Boys, head over to patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. We do game streaming, movie nights with our patrons every Friday night, and you can even commission your own podcast about anything you want. Literally anything, within reason, and we have to do it. You are quite frankly out of excuses not to go visit patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds.
If you had 3 wishes, what would it be, Tom?
Man, I guess my first wish would probably be for, like, I don't know, a couple of points on my credit score. That would be nice.
Ooh, that's pretty good. I was thinking for my first wish,
Yeah.
sword hand.
I was thinking about something to do with my hands. Yeah. I was thinking maybe squeegee hands so I could just wash everything while I was using it.
Yeah. Second wish, another sword hand.
Right.
Yeah. And then I don't know what to do with the third one.
I mean, sword head, sword dick.
Sword dick!
One sword leg, but with a spring, so you're mobile.
That's pretty cool. These are all good options.
Like a pogo sword. Like the lower half of your body just ends in a pogo sword.
Got it.
So like you're Baraka up top, and then you're like one of the puppet master puppets for the bottom.
Baraka up top, party in the back.
Yeah, party on the bottom. Pogo sword on the bottom.
Hey everybody.
Hello everyone.
My name is David Bell.
My name is Tom Ryman.
And we just watched 3,000 Years of Longing.
Longing.
Yep. Or the porn version, 3,000 Years of Donging.
That sure?
Am I right?
Yeah, I think you might be. There's my third wish.
Ooh, yeah. We got there.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. Whatever it is, I'm sure it has an interesting story.
So, what will you wish for?
What is your heart's desire?
I do have a question. What does one do with 3 wishes?
You'll see.
3,000 years of boning.
Yeah.
Yours is better. Donging. Schlonging. There it is.
Schlonging. Or just longing.
Yeah.
Or just long thing. 3,000 years of long thing.
Yeah.
I like schlonging.
Yeah, schlonging's
That's easy.
pretty...
It's just an S. You just add an S.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is George Miller. George Miller made this movie.
It is, yeah. This is his follow-up to Fury Road.
Yeah, this is like long time coming, but also felt like it came out of nowhere. Like I feel like I heard about this like 3 months ago, maybe a little longer.
Yeah, I think I believe I remember reading about it in like 2019.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, a couple of years. You can, there people are wearing masks, so this movie was produced during the pandemic. Yeah. This
is Tilda Swinton and Idris Elba.
Mm-hmm.
And that's mainly it. I mean, there's a lot of supporting cast.
Yeah.
But it's about a writer.
She's not a writer.
She's like fascinated with she's a scholar.
Yeah, she's an academic. They call her a narrativologist or something. She basically studies folklore and stories and stuff across cultures and time periods. And her whole thing is her interest lies in the connective threads between the different stories that have been told across different cultures and time periods.
Yeah, she's got that. Yeah. She's got that real Da Vinci Code energy where like her job isn't a thing that exists.
She's got that.
I'm a symbologist.
Symbologist.
Like, sure you are.
Yeah.
Sure you are.
Sure, man. She has a version of Robert Langdon hair. It's not as extreme, but it is still like it's an unflattering haircut. It's more on purpose in this film. Whereas like Da Vinci Code was just like accidental pro wrestler mullet on Tom Hanks.
Yeah. That's so good.
But yeah, the point is she's supposed to be bookish and kind of socially awkward, doesn't really want is not really interested in pursuing relationships with other people. She's a solitary person.
she doesn't need anything is a key part about her character, because wouldn't you know it, she goes out. Well, first she goes and does a lecture and encounters like an ancient ghost.
Yeah, she sees a ghost at the airport too.
She does, yeah. Which I definitely want to talk about what that means. So she at a market finds a bottle that she's going to bring home. She gives it a little scrubby scrub, and when you know it, a giant Idris Elba is in there. A djinn. And he wants to give her 3 wishes. And the majority of the movie, not all of it, but I think the majority, take place in this hotel room where she's just talking to this djinn about his previous, I guess, masters.
Yeah, it's because her, you know, her, whether or not it's a make-believe doctorate or field of professional field that you can get into, her whole deal is that she studies all this folklore, and she's like, well, I don't trust you because every single story about genies and jinn and folklore is about how they trick you or about how the wishes get monkey's pawed in some fucking way. So she doesn't want to make a wish.
Right, and I think this is a big part of this, because I also want to note that when she does her lecture, she talks about superheroes as like the modern myths, and I think that's important for where the story goes.
Oh yeah, she mentions that these stories sort of outlive their usefulness. She explains that, you know, part of the reason for so much of what we now call mythology was ways people explained the world around them before science was advanced enough to explain the seasons and things like that. So they created gods and mythology and stuff like that, and these stories to explain things. And now these stories, we still tell them, but they've outlived their utility. So they're just sort of, and then that's when they show like the slides of superheroes. That's kind of what they become, is the connection she's making.
Yeah. So he goes through these stories, these really elaborate, gorgeous fucking stories about these previous people who found, like, how he got trapped originally, and then all these people meeting like this their demise or some misfortune, finding this djinn, and it's almost vampiric, where it's like him talking about, eons. Not eons, but you know what I mean.
Thousands of years.
Hundreds of years, thousands of years, these large spans of time, and him observing people over the span of time. At one point, he's sort of trapped in a in-between worlds where he just can't be seen, and he has to follow this one young boy, these 2 brothers, as they get older and older, trying to get him to free him. There's a bunch. It's like a bunch of little short stories.
Yeah, it's almost an anthology film, almost.
Almost.
Not really.
In the credits, they credit them in anthology sections.
Yeah.
And then finally, hitting the third act, she decides her first wish, which is for him to love her, and them to basically be together.
Mm-hmm. She wants to experience. The title sort of comes back around. She wants to experience like the longing and the passion that he had for connection, because it's a feeling she doesn't have.
Yes, because she talks about how that's why she likes stories. She likes stories because they give her the emotions that she lacks. Sort of like she's not. She had one relationship that didn't really work out, and the guy said, "You're not very good at reading emotions." So she's clearly she's kind of an alien. She's kind of a Tilda Swinton type.
Yeah, she's a real Tilda Swinton character.
Yeah. And so, and of course, obviously, spoilers. And so she brings him back to London, and a very neat idea happens, in my opinion, is that he can hear every transmission, everything that's going on, because this is his first time in like our modern world. As he points out, he's only been gone for like 200 years, and that so much has happened in that time, which is always wild to think about. And so he starts to get sick, and the idea is, I believe, the modern world is killing him.
Yeah, he can't exist here.
Yeah, he can't exist here, which is very much the entire movie about this idea of these stories that have outlived their usefulness. And so she wishes that he can go back to wherever he came from. And then he leaves, he gets better, and then he visits her every now and then as long as he can stand. And that's the movie.
That's the end. Yeah.
It's a surprisingly small movie well, no, right. It's really not. But like, you know what I mean? Where it's like,
it feels small, but because most of the movie is just the two of them talking in this hotel room in Turkey. But we get his different stories are these, like we said, these gorgeous flashbacks where he basically tells 3 little vignettes about his previous life, and the visuals are just everything you'd expect from a George Miller movie. The
visuals are absolutely beautiful.
So good. Yeah, it's such a pretty movie, and I don't think it's super. I feel like it seems more dense than it might actually be. I think it's pretty. I feel like it was a pretty straightforward movie about the purpose of stories and storytelling, and the idea of that's how we're all connected across thousands of years and hundreds of thousands of years are the stories that we all tell, and the purpose for them is to find meaningful connection with other people. That's ultimately, I think, what the title is about, and the whole idea of wishes. And like he keeps saying, it can't be flippant wishes because of the specific I guess curse that was placed on him. It can't just be like, because Tilda Swinton tries this, she's like, oh, I wish for a sip of this tea, and he's like, it doesn't work like that. It has to be like your heart's desire.
Yeah, because I was entrapped because of my heart's desire.
Yeah,
essentially. And 3,000 years of longing, like 3,000 years of people telling stories.
And
longing for connection.
All of the wishes can ultimately be boiled down searching for connection, basically.
Yeah.
I think that's what it's about, and it's like a surprisingly like sweet movie. It's like a romance, and it's also really it's pensive and bittersweet, but it's not. I wouldn't call it sad. It's
not at all sad.
It's like quietly profound. I think I really enjoyed this movie.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how did you like this film, Tom?
I liked it. I
really liked this movie. I really, really liked it. I'm surprised. Like it's not getting bad reviews, but like it's even like okay reviews. I'm like, come on, it's better than that. It's really good.
It is.
I really, really enjoyed this movie. I think it's very unconventional because again, I think a lot of the movie is fucking just people talking, and I do. Part of me is like. The cynical part of me is like, today's kids, the superhero crowd, they're not going to go for this sort of thing. I don't think that's actually true.
I don't think so.
No, because this movie is good. Like it's told really well, and it kept my interest the entire time.
Yeah.
Like it's not hard to pay attention to. It's beautiful. It's telling, like you said, a relatively simple story.
Yeah.
In this very grand, gorgeous way.
It even starts out with Tilda Swinton's character narration saying, "This is my story. This is what actually happened to me. But I know it's going to be hard to believe. So in order to make it more believable, I'll tell it as a fairy tale." And that's kind of what the whole movie is, and kind of what the little vignettes are as well. It's sort of like a fairy tale, like the Arabian Nights. It's sort of like. I forget the word for it, but they're simple like life lessons or these simple ideas about life and existence that are just told through these fantastical stories. And so it's not that complicated. It's just really broadly imaginative and like you said, really unconventional. So it's,
it's a weird comparison.
What's that?
Is fucking Princess Bride, where it's someone telling a story that's also that's showing their connection as well to the person they're telling the story to ultimately.
Yeah.
And it also is like a celebration of storytelling in that when he first starts telling her these stories, she's obviously she's a scholar of storytelling, so she's into it, but there's this like there is a hook moment. Like there's a moment where he's telling the story and you realize like you want to, like when the first time they cut back, much like the Princess Bride, there's these moments where you're like, well, don't stop telling the story now. Mm-hmm. And you realize like, because at no point does the movie prepare you for the fact that like a huge chunk of the movie is just storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
It's just this Jin telling stories, and then you find yourself falling into his stories, and you're like, oh, I could sit here and listen to this forever.
Yeah.
The Adventures of Idris Elba, absolutely.
Yeah, across hundreds of years, thousands of years for the first one. Like he gets after he initially gets trapped in a bottle by Solomon, like from the Bible.
Yeah.
And dropped in the ocean and is there for like 2,000 years.
Yeah.
So like right off the bat, he gets locked in a bottle for a shitload of time.
He doesn't have a great time.
2/3 of the title's time, Dave. He's trapped in the ocean.
Yeah. 2 of those 3,000 years is just ocean darkness.
Yeah.
Oh man, that sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's after a while, it's such an epic tale. That you just want to fucking you want to hear it all. And that's the thing about this movie is this movie must have a budget, right?
I think 60 million is what I saw.
That's it. Wow. George Miller, you're so good. She made that shit stretch.
He really does.
Because watching this, I guess what made this movie so special to me, and I'm sure you picked up on this, is this has that stink of they don't make movies like this anymore. Like this is a very, very elaborate production to tell a love story, a very simple love story.
Yeah,
and that alone was really nice to see.
Broader theme about what love is and like how everybody's sort of. Even if it's not like specifically romantic love that you're searching for, everybody's sort of searching for a version of it.
Right. So what are the stories? The first one is his own love story. Where
he's in love.
Gets trapped.
He's in love with Sheba. And then Solomon shows up, and we get a neat idea here where like Tilda Swinton pushes back. She's like, well, no, in the Bible and all these other religious texts, Sheba goes looking for Solomon, and he says, Madam, I was there. Solomon came to her. So that
like, I don't know about these texts. All I know is that this is what happened.
So like right off the bat, we get this idea. They put the idea in our heads about the sort of the different perspectives of stories and storytelling, and how like your understanding of an event is entirely based on how somebody decided to tell it. And then your connection to it and how you interpret it. And I don't know if I haven't had enough time to sort of ponder that idea anymore. I think that might be all the only significance of that, but I just thought that was interesting that right off the bat.
Yes, it is.
If we get this idea of, well, no, it's that maybe the verse that you heard, but that's not what I'm about to tell you.
And Solomon woos her by just having a jam.
Dude, that doing the fucking Dick Van Dyke one-man band thing, but like way cooler
so
with like Green Knight magic.
Right. It was like that's exactly what it was. It was like lightly demonic magic.
Yeah, like
where you're
slightly
like, I'm
alarming.
not sure this is on the level.
You'd be a little afraid if you saw this.
Yeah, he's playing this fucking. I don't know what I guess that's the point. It's
like a lute / sitar at first, and then it keeps
and it like
growing these. Yeah. Yeah,
he like repairs the string, and then it starts growing like more strings, and then it has percussion built in
to it. Yeah,
it's like something that like a professor at Harry Potter. Harry Potter
it's
world.
some Hogwarts horse shit for sure.
Yeah, and then he keeps doing the impossible for this woman,
right,
so they end up magic banging, and then like while banging, like it's man, what a visual. What a terrible thing to happen to poor Idris Elba. He gets trapped in a bottle while they're banging. He just like low key traps him.
Right, like
while banging.
The idea is Idris was in love with, because I don't think the Jinn ever gets a name. And that's right, he doesn't, because when she leaves her banker's box in the basement for him at the end, there's no name on the tag. That's right. We'll get to that. He is in love with Sheba, and they're like cousins. So she's like part Jinn. So she's like, there's like heightened reality surrealness to every story. So this is a magic universe in which this story takes place. At the very least,
there's other magical beings.
Yes, at the very least, the universe of the stories that Idris tells about his past, those clearly take place in a magical universe where there's other magical beings. So Solomon has like magic out the ass, and he's in love with Sheba, but she really goes for Solomon because he does all the impossible tasks that she gives him. So when his desire in return was like, oh, I want to be with you. So like they're together, and like you said, they're boning on this really awesome bed. But Idris is heartbroken, and he lets out this heartbreaking cry, which is where the idea of like your heart's desire comes from. And Solomon hears that, and he's like, "Fuck that!" So
he's like, "We can have this while we're boating."
he traps like mid thrust.
Yeah.
Conjures a bottle, traps Idris in it, has a hawk take it out to the ocean.
One of his hawks.
One of his fucking hawks.
One of his literal wingmen.
Oh, man. So that's the idea of his entrapment and the whole needing to grant 3 wishes. It's all about your passion and your desire and it not being fulfilled and your yearning, the longing, from the title of fulfilling whatever it is that's like, in your secret heart, as the phrase goes.
Yeah.
That's the first story.
Yeah, the second story is
the 2 brothers.
No, it's the young woman, right?
No, she's the last one. Saphira or yeah, the genius, the inventor. She's the last story.
No, the first young woman.
Oh, you're right. That's right.
Yeah,
there's actually 4 stories. There's
right. 4 stories because basically the thing turns into a rock after a while.
Yeah,
gets put into a fucking wall, and a woman climbing the wall knocks it out, finds it, and that's how it gets put in the tile as well. It's a young woman who's in love with a prince.
Right, she's one of the concubines.
Yeah, she hides the bottle under a tile in this bathroom
in like a subterranean part of the palace.
Yeah, and she he falls in love with her as he wishes, but then there's like clearly a power struggle where they're going to kill this prince, and she wishes to get to a super prego, and he's like, no, you really don't want to get pregnant with this guy's kid, you really don't, but she does anyway. And it's a story of basically her wishes destroying her. And then they kill the prince. They come to kill her, and he's like, for the love of God, wish one more wish. And she doesn't. She runs off. They huck her. They Aladdin her. They Aladdin her straight to the ocean.
Throw her in the goddamn ocean.
Yeah, except unlike Aladdin, this goes the way it normally would, which is that she drowns.
Yeah,
and
he tries. He does dive into. He doesn't turn into a submarine.
He tries.
He does dive into the ocean to try to save her. And this is unrelated to the jinn. In case that wasn't clear, like she happened to wish herself into the middle of a whole ass Game of Thrones situation where like she's in love with the prince. But like the king suspects the prince is trying to overthrow him, so he has the prince executed, and then by extension, she gets executed.
Yeah, and that's when he's kind of just wandering the earth because he doesn't have.
Well, he's trapped.
She didn't make her third wish.
So he's trapped in a bottle beneath this tile in the palace. So he's kind of limited to the palace, but he is wandering around the palace in spirit form for like the next 100 years.
Yep, and he keeps trying to get this one. He finds one prince that can fucking sort of see him, or can like follow him, and he keeps trying to get him to this tile. And then it tells an entire story of this prince like growing up, getting completely fucked by war, like
he becomes like a psychopath after he goes to war. Yeah,
and how like nothing will appease him afterwards, but this one old man who tells stories for him. And then the old man dies, and ultimately the prince is too weak to even get into the room that the gin bottle is in. It's like this tragic story. Yeah. This very frustrating story for the gin. Like the gin, it's a really, I love how they tell it, because the gin he seems relatively like concerned for the humans, but obviously more concerned for like, I need to get out of this fucking bottle. Like, for the love of God, someone get me out of this bottle. You know what I mean?
Right. And it's So Tilda Swinton at one point asks him, well, weren't you worried because he's finally able to get the prince, who I think is named Murad, able to get his violent ass attention one night when he's drunk as hell after he's grown up and done all sorts of violence. And Tilda Swinton asks him, he's like, weren't you concerned about the kind of wishes a man like him would make? And he's like, no, not if it meant me getting free.
Right. And as a djinn, why would he? He's seen thousands of years pass. He's seen people come and go. To him, it's like, I don't give a fuck, man. Like,
sort of.
Humans come and go. I like, again, what you're getting at, which is he's compassionate. He is not a sociopath.
Yeah.
But he's also like kind of understands the scale of humanity and that violence is going to happen, you know?
And he's been alone for so long that he's just so desperate for this connection where he's like, well, I could get it with this maniac. So.
Right. The B plot of this one story is that the prince's brother was being prepped for making an heir to the throne. And so he's just kept in a fuck room.
Yeah, he's kept in a sable fuck room, his fuck chamber.
Yeah. And his particular tastes are large women.
Yes.
So it's him and a lot of large women in this fuck room. And is there nudity? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
What that plays into is like his favorite lady who then takes the throne, who like gets control of the throne.
The brother is kind of simple.
He becomes a sultan.
He becomes sultan, and he just appoints all of his favorite concubines as different positions, and she's like one of the
outsources it.
Yeah, she's like one of the governors or something, and she wanders into the spot where the bottle is hidden and slips on the stone, and because she's large, it actually dislodges the stone. So there's like this there's this idea of fate woven through the story too.
Right. And of course, when she gets the genie, in this case, he's just so panicked that he just freaks her out.
Yeah. She thinks he's a demon, so she's like, I wish you were, she wishes him back into a bottle in the sea.
Yeah. And so like, wah wah.
Yep.
Like, yeah. And then that's when the next lady finds it, right?
Yes, this is when the third story, well, the fourth story actually, which is this woman named Saphira, or I forget, but she's this genius, but she's sort of trapped within the limitations of the time period where she's married to this. She's like his third wife, and the other two wives don't really like her, and he keeps her locked in this tower, but gives her this bottle that he finds at the market as a gift, and it turns out to be the genie's bottle. And when she meets the djinn, her first wish is for all of the knowledge, like all of the world's knowledge, because she just wants to know more. She wants to. She's already smart. Like when the genie first comes out, like she's showing him all of these things that she's invented, like this. Basically an early film projector, like a Da Vinci little helicopter thing that she's made. She just wants to know things and it would be free of that particular trap. So they end up falling in love. And he
fucks up this time.
He fucks up this time.
Basically, she's trying to like map the universe and do all this stuff, and she's really obsessed with being wicked smart. And he falls in love with her, and I know he prevents her her third wish. He keeps preventing her third wish
because he doesn't want to leave.
That's what happens.
Yeah, that's right.
Because he doesn't want to leave. Which I was thinking, like, oh, can he just hang out afterwards? I don't know how that works. Like it's like when you're hanging out with someone when they're at work, and then they get off of work, and you can still hang out. But I don't know how the rules work. It doesn't matter. And then she gets so mad at this. He decides to put himself into a bottle, which is the bottle Tilda Swinton gets, to basically stay with her. Like it's his version of being like, okay, I'll get in this bottle. Let's all cool down. I think that's him de-escalating.
It's sort of a version of him giving her a key to the apartment. I think it's like, it's to give her. Yes. To make a concession so that she feels that she has more agency. Like he doesn't.
Yes.
He says like, I wanted her to feel like I did this so that she could feel like she had power over the situation because all I wanted to do was just stay there.
But as he's going into the bottle, she blurts out, "I wish I never knew you," or something of that sort.
Wish I never met
her memory.
you.
Yep. So her memory erases as he's in the bottle. So he's just in that fucking bottle again. like an asshole until Tilda Swinton gets him.
Yeah.
And then she they have the relationship, and like we said, he starts dying because of the world. She, I guess, frees him. She tells him to go wherever Jinns go.
Yeah,
which I'm not sure where that is.
He says it's like a realm, like there's a Jinn realm.
Oh right, they all hang out.
There's like a spirit.
Tell stories.
Yeah, there's like a spirit world. So she said I forget the exact way she phrases it.
She frees him. She frees him basically.
Yeah. She says, if you need to, I want you to go wherever it is that Jinn go if you need to. So she doesn't. She puts like a condition on it, so it gives him choice in the matter.
Yeah, because she wished for him to love him or love her, and she realizes obviously this is not Aladdin, where apparently that you can make that wish, and she realizes way too late, like that's not love. Obviously,
obviously
that's not love.
Right? She realizes that she has trapped him, with that wish,
and and so that's the story. Now I'm curious about, like, I think you're right. It's a fairly straightforward in terms of like what it all means, but there's some little loose ends. For example, I think I mentioned before she meets the Jinn, she has two visions, or she sees two supernatural entities.
Yeah.
This little guy who tries to get her bags.
Yeah.
And then vanishes. And then when she's giving her lecture, she faints because this like old timey king.
Yeah,
like
it's a
gobbles her up.
It's a freaky deaky priest. We see him.
We do see him
in the first story, the Sheba story.
Right. So what does that mean?
I think that's because remember he said he have to like call out to people and sort of compel them to come to his bottle. I think that's what that is.
Okay, yeah, it's him trying to get
leading
her
to and we get sort of
because it also brings in this idea that like it was fated, right? Because she's seeing things that she's yet to learn about,
right? And we see her do similar things that Sheba did, like there's the repeated swallow after a certain point, which is like we're shown like it's almost a cartoonish gulp, but it's how we're shown that Sheba's actually into Solomon rather than the Jinn. And we see Tilda do the same thing at a certain point in the Jinn storytelling, which is like, oh, she's in love with him.
Right. Well, he's Idris Elba. So.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was a really good storytelling device because it's a cue that the audience can instantly go,
right.
Oh, okay, I know what's happening.
Right. And it's also, there's a thread of how, Sheba had Jinn blood, and so did the prince. Murad, I think, was his name. Anyway, the prince of the two brothers also had Jinn blood. So I think there's an implication that Tilda has it as well. Like it's the same. Yeah. So there's like this. It's the sort of destiny they were going to end up together in this final version of the story, which is basically she still has that third wish, if I'm not mistaken, but she's not using it.
Right. Well, she could wish away her damn asthma, but she's not gonna. That's another little detail. The asthma, her neighbors. There's all these little things sprinkled without. The neighbors to me felt like it was showing that what he's sort of saying, that is a chaotic world, like that he's a simple story in a chaotic world. That idea that this is really about storytelling and about how we're so hyper connected now, and that like like. She's got two old racist neighbors, and at first she like kind of quarrels with them in the garden, right? But then she goes over there and offers them some of this special kind of fucking awesome ass food that the Jinn gave her. Delicious. So I think it's that idea. It's the connectedness, and she introduces the Jinn. Yes. Yeah. So she's sharing this with them, and I think it's just another idea related to the theme of connection, and that's what the wishes all are ultimately about. Yeah, finding meaningful connection with other people. You're doing a great job at interpreting these scenes, because I feel like this is, like we said, this is a fairly straightforward movie, but we just fucking watched it. So I feel like there's going to be more to chew on here. Oh yeah, for sure. There's invariably, like after we post the episode, there's always shit. Think it's like, oh fuck, there it is. Like, yeah. Right. But it's, that's the thing, is there's a bunch of little things like that. There's going into her childhood a little bit, but none of it feels random, and it all feels to serve this larger story.
Well, the stuff in her childhood, she tells a story about how she basically had an imaginary friend that she wrote this elaborate,
and that's who he represents.
and that's the space that the djinn comes to fill. And yeah, that's how we're kind of told that. That's ultimately all she ever wanted, was like a confidant, somebody to that connection, somebody to love, somebody to confide in.
Right, and she's like reluctant to admit it at first.
Yes, yeah, because she says she burned it all and thought it was silly, and that she was silly for inventing this character that she had.
Right, but obviously it's the one heart's desire, you know. Yeah. And it's again, it's kind of her wanting. That's the thing, is she gets what she wishes for, in a way that you could argue the djinn. Like, you could argue the djinn knew he was going to be sick or faked it, because that's part of what she wishes for. She wishes for, because the whole idea is, before she meets the djinn, she's content, as we said. She doesn't want anything. And obviously that's not completely true, but she's convinced herself it's true. And she's not completely wrong at that point. But what she wishes for is basically longing. She's wishing for that feeling and to ache over someone. And so part of that is the need for that thing to not be around.
Right.
And that's what happens is he disappears. He has to go away and come back every now and then. Yeah. There's also visually this idea, I don't know if you agree with this or not, is that her world felt like it got more magical looking as the movie went on. And her in the park feels like it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the park was completely surreal. The park looked like something from Babe, Pig in the City.
Yeah. So the other interpretation is this is a movie about a woman who dies of a brain tumor.
Sure.
Yeah. Like, yeah. like just I don't know. That obviously that's not the point, but like it definitely gets, her world gets a little more magical as it goes on. I want to watch it again for that reason, to see how it's like lit and shot, you know?
And
my favorite.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I feel like what you were going to say had more to do with what we were just talking about. I was going to change the subject.
Oh, I think the other characters show up. Like, I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure one of the people that stops her in the airport was Solomon.
Oh.
Or I think like
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
Yes. The people where she goes through the fucking thing and she has the salt shaker and they're like, yeah, I think it might. So there's definitely, I'm looking at the credits and there's definitely people playing like blank/blank.
Yeah, multiple characters. Like there's a little bit of that going on. So like the magic bleeding into the real world. And I think that's just her letting these connections in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like it's telling that the last scene, it looks like this magical park where they're walking along this path toward the horizon, you know, having a nice moment together, but they're surrounded by people who are also having their own moments. And like these kids kick a soccer ball that Idris intercepts and does this cool like fucking bullseye trick, kicking it back to them.
Yeah.
So they like stop, like they're having their own moment, but they stop and you know, briefly share this moment with these other people. So I think that's all related to her starting to allow these connections to be formed with the rest of people. Yeah, you're right.
Because it's sort of about storytelling and the idea of being obsessed with storytelling, which you could argue is like film, you know, in the modern age.
Yeah.
Or like they briefly talk about people on their phones, but not in like a condescending way, more in like, isn't this kind of cool that we have these? But it's almost like embracing the world and embracing modern storytelling and not being like bitter about it.
Yeah. It's interestingly what the thing you said about the smartphones, what, if I remember it correctly, what the line actually is, it's in the opening part of narration. Tilda Swinton is talking about, we live in an age where people fly on metal wings. And she says, or we each have a little square piece of glass in our pocket that can, and what she specifically says about it is that it can conjure love songs out of the air.
Right. Yeah, that is a really interesting way to put it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's the idea, is like, because again, there's there's some sadness. This world is killing him. He can't handle this world, and this world is full of noise and kind of also hate.
But
that idea of retreating into stories to get away from that world, which is like, I think what Tilda Swinton initially does with her life, right? Is she doesn't want people. She doesn't like the world. She doesn't like her neighbors. She just yells at them as opposed to trying to convince them otherwise, which of course that's a whole different conversation about what your responsibility is to fucking bigots around you. But
sure.
In this case, what the movie's showing is that like she wants to become part of a story. And to become part of a story, you have to interact with the world around you, essentially.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then,
as opposed to just listening to stories.
Right. And then the genie he ends up in a place where he can come and go, like he can come back when like he needs her and like when she needs him. But the idea that he can't exist in the modern world is what we were talking about at the beginning, what they talk about in the beginning of the movie, where it's he's a story that has outlived his usefulness. That's the idea of it anyway. So he can't like exist for prolonged periods of time, but he's still there to access his wisdom and that connection to that 3,000-year-old world that he comes from whenever you want, basically.
Yeah. Good movie.
It's pretty sweet. Yeah.
One thing I feel like we've completely left out, and I know why we haven't, because it's hard to really talk about, is how fucking gorgeous this movie is and how well made it is. It's George Miller.
Yeah.
So like the part where like that guy turns into a demon.
Yeah.
And you're just like, fuck, what the fuck? The part where he first arrives in her hotel room, probably my favorite scene, because it's not having a djinn come out of a bottle. Not a fun experience.
No, it's pretty like wild. Yeah.
Yeah. They make it feel shocking. And it's shocking to see. And he's giant at first. He barely fits in the hotel room, and his voice is otherworldly. And he's like slowly like sucking the energy from different objects in the room to gain knowledge, and slowly like figure out the world around him. And he doesn't speak her language
like
at first.
Apocalypse, Dave.
Yeah, he's like Apocalypse, but like good. And like he fuck, I'm gonna watch that movie. And like there's just like. There's such a presence where it's like having a fucking dinosaur in the room, where she's terrified at first and he is a terrifying presence, and there's all these noises coming from him and like whispers, and it's just like, oh fuck, that is so well done, George Miller. You're so good at this. Because there's a version of this that like another director looking at this script or this story wouldn't think to do that, and it's like, that's so fucking good. It's the sort of thing that like I feel like a lot of modern movies, like I've said this, I feel like I haven't said this enough actually about CGI. CGI is never the problem. It's how it's presented. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And like, so when a giant man, a giant djinn goes into a room, that's a big deal. And not enough movies or directors would shoot that in a way that it's a big deal. Right? Does that make sense?
I think I see what you're saying.
Where it's jarring and it's big and it freaks you out, and it's George Miller's so good at that. And of course there's a lot of practical effects in this as well.
Yeah, a lot of it is just like trick photography.
Yeah.
At least I noticed a couple of shots where like, oh, I think this is just like forced perspective,
Yeah, I believe so.
But
it's just George Miller is so good at presenting the spectacle of a situation. And knowing that it's a spectacle, which is something that we don't get enough of, in my opinion, when it comes to big ideas.
Yeah, and a way to convey them, like he's the huge idea of a djinn being real, and now he's here. Is like it's the idea of having him be like physically too big for the hotel room, and then you go from there, and she has to like rattle through different languages before they land on, I think, ancient Greek, which he understands. So they start talking in Greek for a minute.
And stuff like whenever his powers, like whenever he gets mad or he like when she's first dealing with him, he's not violent, but he like can't, like he has these involuntary reactions.
Yeah.
And like they hurt. Like he smashes a bottle and her face gets cut. Like it's stuff like that where it's like we're gonna show what this actually would be like in the situation. Which like cut to Jar Jar Binks stuck in an engine flying around like Bugs Bunny. You know what I mean? Where it's like that's the difference between good CGI and bad. It's not how realistic the CGI looks. It's the being aware of like how does this affect the world around it. How do we make this seem like it's real as opposed to it's made in a computer, we can do whatever we want. And it's like, that's a bad way of doing it.
Yeah, it's maybe not. You still probably know what you want it to look like before you just dive in there.
And to respect what it is, what it's supposed to be in the scene.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean is like the Jinn, even when he's CG, you really feel his presence in the room. Yeah. I really like this movie.
Yeah, man, it's pretty sweet. Everybody should definitely watch it. It's quite an experience on a big screen, even though, like we said, a lot of it is in this hotel room, but also a lot of it is these flashback, super elaborate, surreal fantasy landscapes of Idris's stories.
It's worth seeing in theaters if you, I don't know, have access to marijuana, if you've heard of that.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I can take some mushrooms.
Yeah, it is definitely a movie for that. I didn't want to, my AMC experience, they were like begging me to not want to see this movie. It took them like 20 minutes of in a dark theater to get it running. Then it was out of focus for the first 10 minutes. It was awful.
I was wondering what took you so long.
The guy next to me answered his phone during the movie. And just said, hello, I'm in a movie theater, bro. What's up? It was like, what is happening? Did I die? It was one of those, all right, when I went to concessions, they kept calling the line next to me while I sat there for 10 minutes and I just left. Like, it was that where I was like, what am I being punked by this movie theater? It was one of the worst AMC experiences I've had.
The Jinn was trying to get you to make a wish.
Yeah. The movies are back, but also our shitty movie experiences.
It's like, it's the movies are back, but also, the movies are back.
Right. Being in a movie theater isn't always fun.
Yeah.
But once the movie started, I was like, I didn't give a fuck. I was so into the movie. So
yeah.
It's interesting how this movie made my shitty theater experience delightful.
It's the stories, Dave. It's the storytelling.
It's the storytelling.
It's that connection, bro.
Yeah.
I'm in a movie theater,
heartbreak feels good in a place like this.
Yeah, it does.
You know?
Gigantic Idris Elba feels good in a place like this.
Is this just that AMC intro in a movie form?
I guess, yeah, kind of. It's not that. It's not that. It's not Tyrion's speech at the end of Game of Thrones.
Oh shit! Yes. It's the storytellers. Mm-hmm. Let us all give ourselves a big pat on the back.
Indeed, we deserve it.
Yeah.
I don't have anything else to say other than just fucking on that note, crowing about this movie for another hour.
There's a way to do a movie about storytelling without making people roll their eyes, and I would argue this is it.
Yeah.
I didn't once catch on to how we're jerking ourselves off,
right? Because it's
talking about stories.
Because it's less about it's not about the importance of the storyteller. It's about the importance of the story.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter what the story. It never once talks about film. It's about just stories. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Radical.
Yeah. Radical. In fact.
Yeah. Radical. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
I think you got some stuff to tell them, Dave.
Yeah, I'm gonna listen. We have a Patreon, patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. For just $5 a month, you get access to a bunch of exclusive podcasts like Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Star Trek: The Next Futurama, and Spiel Boys. Those are all for $5 a month. For a little more, you can watch movies with us every Friday night. We also do custom We Just Watched episodes, custom podcasts in general. There's a bunch of tiers on there, so go check it out today.
Indeed. Do that. All right. I'm going to tell you the story of our store. Get over to GameFullyUnemployed.com where you find a link to our Teespring store. We have all kinds of cool original artwork and designs you can get on t-shirts, mugs, stickers, posters, all sorts of things that you can slap on your wall and stuff and have a gigantic Jinn sort of shuffle it apart with his butt skin because he can't control his size yet. He just came out of the bottle. So check that out.
Yeah, Idris Elba's his balls were as big as a person at one point.
They must have been. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
They must have been. That is pretty sweet. Yeah. It's the magic of storytelling, Dave.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Through the magic of storytelling, Idris Elba's balls could be as big or as small as you'd like.
Mm-hmm. They could be little feline-sized balls and cats.
Yeah, they could. Or they could big building-sized balls.
Gigantic building-sized balls, yeah. Okay, I think that's a good thought to leave on.